Alrighty folks, well today might not be another installment of dolls just from my personal collection. This one is a doll that I blocked out of my memory last time I was chatting about my girls. And my dad can't currently find her, never mind the fact that I can't even find what type of baby doll she was on the internet. Picture this, a white baby doll with white blonde hair, wearing a yellow patterned dress, and she has like a band-aid on her hand and she's got some hearts on her body. Like there's one on her skull, I think there's one on her cheek, some more on the band-aid. Oh, and she talks. Battery powered, of course. So if you know what this is, please let me know in the comments because I can't find any creator for it. So the band-aids and like the little hearts act as sensors, repeating, "I love you, mommy." Cute, right? Yeah. So while this was, a cute toy when I was little, it kind of got cast to the wayside as I was growing up, since I grew out of playing with my baby doll style dolls and played more with my Barbies, my Mycenes, Bratz, Polly Pockets, so forth and so on. My marbles. I still have the large trunk of all my Barbies in their shoebox with their accessories in like my living room currently, for crying out loud. And that's without mentioning that one of my couches is currently full of my stuffed animals, and I just got another one yesterday. When I was in high school though, I think my mom moved the baby doll from my playroom into my bedroom into an attempt to decorate in her style or something similar. She lived in one of the cubbies above my bed, next to my stuffed, farm Barney plush, and my stuffed lion, and also next to the cubby with whatever books I was reading at the time. Look, my childhood bedroom looks like a library, and that's to say the least. Well, as luck would have it, one day I was picking her up to dust around her, and she started making noise. "I love you, mommy. I love you, mommy." So I had previously unearthed my Diva Stars doll from her toy graveyard, and being similarly battery operated, knew that if this doll had batteries left over in her, they should have been corroded and non-functional by that point in time. So I flipped the doll over, pried open her Velcro backing, fished out the battery pack, only to discover that she didn't have any batteries in her. At all. Zilch. Zero. Nothing. So hey, at first I was like, maybe I just imagined it. I was a sleep deprived teen after all, and that was during the time I was bouncing off and on Concerta, which don't do that. ADHD's a fun time. I shook my head and kept on with my mundane chores until she said it again. "I love you, mommy." Now by the way, her voice box was still as crystal clear as it had been when I was in my youth, which also confused the heck out of me. So I grabbed her and I brought her to my dad, but her sensors obviously didn't activate in front of him. So he chalked it up to my overactive imagination, and I think I either buried her in my closet or back in the graveyard that was the downstairs playroom. Yes, I was totally scared of going there when I was little. So earlier today I was trying to find a photo of her, and I was even FaceTiming my dad to try and find her somewhere in my childhood home, and I came out with nothing. Which leads me to the conclusion that she's waiting somewhere in the ether, just plotting a revenge, or I don't want to think about otherwise. If she shows up at my place later, check my Instagram, you'll know. Number 4, Annabelle. So Donna and Angie were student nurses and good friends who had decided to room together while in school, and for Donna's 28th birthday, her mom had gifted her a very large Raggedy Ann doll, something she was thrilled about. Hey, personally I'd be the same way. I'd be like, yes, gimme. Let the record show, Christmas is coming. I am always down to accept more dolls, plushies. Can't go wrong. So soon after adopting the precious doll, Donna started to notice some weird behavior. She would leave Annabelle on her bed every morning behind her locked bedroom door, seeing her the same way with her arms and legs crossed, and would come home at night to the rag doll having moved rooms and in positions that just weren't possible. She described a few instances of the doll kneeling, and speaking from experience, stuffed dolls can't kneel without falling for more than a few seconds. Now Donna and Angie then started finding notes left throughout the apartment, written on parchment paper in red pen. 2 things they didn't own. When Donna's boyfriend Lou started criticizing the doll, unexplainable handprints and scratches began appearing on his body. And that's when the girls made the decision to call a priest, who then brought in the Warrens. Oh, and before that they also brought in a medium who did a seance. That's how we got the name Annabelle. So the Warrens were able to calm down the entity enough to remove her from the house, place her in the backseat of their vehicle, and Ed decided it was safer to avoid traveling on the interstate in case the entity hadn't really been separated from the doll. And what do you know? Ed Warren was correct. In no time at all, Ed and Lorraine felt themselves the object of a vicious hatred. At every single curve in the road, their new car, by the way, began to stall, causing the power steering and brakes to fail. Repeatedly, this car was verging on collision. The 3rd time the car stalled along the road, Ed reached into his black bag, took out a vial of holy water, and threw it onto the rag doll, making the sign of the cross over it. Thankfully, the disturbance in the car stopped immediately, allowing the Warrens to get home safely. Now, for the next few days afterwards, Ed sat the doll in a chair next to his desk, and the doll levitated a number of times in the beginning, but would seem to just sort of fall inert. During the following weeks, however, it began showing up in various rooms of the house. When the Warrens were away and had the doll locked up in the outer office building, they would often return to find it sitting comfortably upstairs in Ed's easy chair when they opened the main front door. It also became apparent that Annabelle hated priests and assorted clergymen. During the follow-up process on the case, it was necessary for the Warrens to consult the priests associated with the incident in the young, nurse's apartment. Now, Returning home alone one evening, Lorraine was terrified by loud, rolling growls that reverberated throughout the house. And later throughout the night, when she was listening to the playback on the telephone answering machine, there were back-to-back calls from now a Father Hegan. Now between his two calls was the incredible growling noises that she'd heard earlier in the house. On a different day, Father Jason Bradford, a Catholic exorcist, had been working with Ed and asked about, the new addition to the office, Annabelle. Now, Ed told Father Jason about the case and gave him the paperwork for his review, and after hearing Ed's account of what had happened, the priest picked up the rag doll and said, you're just a rag doll, Annabelle. You can't hurt anything. Yeah, you know where this is going, I know where it's going. The priest then tossed the stuffed figure back onto the chair, and Ed was like, hey, that's one thing you better not say, ever again. So when Father Jason stopped to say goodbye to Lorraine, she pleaded that he was, be careful when you're driving, and please call her when you get home, just to be safe. Well, what do you know? A few hours later, the telephone rings. Father Jason's like, hey, Lorraine, why did you tell me to be careful driving? And she's like, well, your car's gonna go out of control and you're gonna have an accident. He's like, well, you were right. The brake system failed and I was almost killed in a traffic accident. My car's a wreck. Oh, this isn't the only instance of, Annabelle having her time. I know one instance where a young man and his girlfriend were visiting the Warrens Museum and he threatened Annabelle by saying, hey, Annabelle, do your worst. Well, when he and his girlfriend left that day on his motorbike, they wound up in an accident. The young man sadly didn't survive, and his girlfriend was left in critical condition. I repeat, respect dolls, especially those with spirits attached. Please.
Number 3, Clara. Honestly, I think she's the prettiest doll out of the bunch. I named her after the protagonist in my favorite ballet, the Nutcracker. Look, I could talk for hours about the level of impact the ballet and the Nutcracker story I've had in my life, but I'd burst into tears and I spent way too much time on my eyeliner this morning to risk that. I can't quite remember at what age I received her at, but she was a Christmas present. Back when I was young, I used to attend an annual young folks Christmas party at the Legion in my hometown, because my grandma was like a high-ranking member, and honestly, they were so much fun. There was always food, games, and Santa would come visit with presents. Oh, if you have little ones watching, I'd recommend turning their heads away for just a moment. So, there are quite a few different Santa's helpers in my hometown, if you catch my drift, but the real Santa was always the one that went to that party. And he was the same one that would actually visit my home on Christmas Eve and hand deliver me a present to unwrap. In retrospect, that party also gave parents an afternoon off to wrap presents without prying eyes around, which is brilliant. Oh, another fun fact. I don't remember her coming with a name. So she was just the pretty porcelain doll that lived in my bedroom for the longest time. I didn't really name a lot of my toys when I was younger. On the Christmas morning of that same year, I actually received another porcelain doll in a rocking chair. Kinda similar to Clara here, but with messier hair, a different outfit, and wearing like a hat instead of her cute little bow. By this point, I'm sure someone has fast-forwarded me while looking for the curse part. I promise, I'm getting to it. So Clara originally lived in my basement playroom back when she didn't have a name, and granted, I didn't venture down there super often since I was kind of afraid of the basement with all of its dark corners, and you know what? I still am. If I went too long between playdates, I'd find all my toys thrown about the room. At first I thought, it was my little brother, since, kind of a classic annoying little brother move. But eventually, I was able to rule out that theory. So I moved Clara up to my bedroom, and she seemed content enough to relax and not cause any more havoc. I didn't like being punished for cleaning, by the way. She's managed to survive a couple of moves now, but she tried losing her leg for a while after the last move in protest. I had it reattached, this little delicate leg here, and reassured her that it was the last time I'd bring her on a big move. She lives in my bedroom these days, sitting in her chair right next to my beloved childhood Nutcracker. Number 2, the ballerina rag doll. So, for starters, I know she's quite something. The red patch that catches everyone's eyes at first is actually her nose, not her mouth. I know, kinda jarring. But her mouth is actually this long line that runs right underneath, and it's super easy to miss. And the yarn hair is adjustable. If my memory serves correctly, originally it was set at like a somewhat shorter length, and I was informed that if I pull on it, it'll adjust, ergo giving her the permanent bedhead she's had. So now that the obvious is out of the way, allow me to tell the wonky tale of how this ballerina came to be in my possession. To set the scene, picture little Alexa, probably dressed in something pink and adorable, wandering around an arts and crafts market in a college gym. Hey look, pink is my favorite color, contrary to popular belief. As I wandered around from booth to booth, I came across one named Abby's Attic, where I spotted this gorgeous pink rag doll. It's been over a decade now, but she had well-maintained long hair, some of it in braids, a cute face with a less pronounced patch, and was in a pink ballerina outfit. I immediately alerted my mom to the doll since, Christmas was near, and well, being a, pink ballerina doll meant little Alexa wanted it. She acknowledged the doll, but to my knowledge at the time, didn't buy it. So I just allowed myself to forget about it because, well, I was young and out of sight, out of mind is still very much a concept in my life. And I'm sure I wanted a million things, I used to mark up the Sears catalog like no tomorrow every year. Before I go off on a tangent though, fast forward to Christmas morning. I'm unwrapping my gifts, and one of the pretty pink packages under the tree is open to reveal a rag doll with short red stringy hair in a blue dress. Now, you can certainly imagine my confusion, and while I tried to appear grateful, blue was not one of my preferred colors at the time, and it kinda showed. My mom reached out to the lady she got the doll from, and it turned out there was a smidge of a mix-up. And sadly, the original pink doll I had fallen in love with was no longer longer available, but if I wanted to pick from her current stock of dolls, the blue one could be exchanged. So off we went to this lady's home, and since purple was my second favorite color at the time, and I liked the little teddy bears on the dress, I settled on this beauty in the purple dress with the gangly arms and legs. She found her home on a bright yellow rocking chair that lived in a corner of my bedroom for many, many years. For quite a while, she would be buried under other stuffed animals or face down because, well, look at her. She's kinda unsettling. When I eventually moved out to go to university, she did not make the move with me and stayed back in my small town. And not because of space, I just didn't want her. Now, during my second year of university, my dad started sleeping in my old bedroom, and he was so creeped out by her that she found a new home, the closet. I'm not kidding, and I have a feeling this might be one of the videos that my dad is actually watching, so hi Dad, remember this monstrosity? Nowadays, she lives in the living room of my apartment because while I can't find it in me to pass her on to someone or burn her, she has an energy that just cannot be ignored, and I'm prone to enough nightmares as it is. Number 1, plastic baby doll. Okay, another nameless doll, I know. This little, darling got passed down to me by my grandma, and I've never found a fitting name for her, or wanted to. I've been considering Millie, though. I don't know much about her history, sadly, and that's after asking my dad and my aunt. Seriously, when I asked my aunt, all I got was a reminder that she doesn't like dolls, and seeing as this was from her side of the family, it checks. What I do know is that she has a very bad habit of moving her eyes on her own, and not in a way that's natural. Like right now, it looks normal because she's, standing up, but even when she's lying down, it's just creepy. Because we're on camera right now, I doubt she's gonna misbehave, but feel free to watch closely in case she does. Oh, I almost forgot. She and Clara were the other 2 dolls that I brought with Glenna to Mysterion's for that checkup. And while she was calm then, I have half a mind to ask him to perform another session tonight when I swing by to return Walt. I tend to keep this baby doll in a corner of my room under a pile of stuffed animals, and she kinda creeps me out, but I guess I should probably give her a name at this point to be nice. I know I mentioned Millie earlier, but let me know your suggestions in the comments. Number 5, Okiku. In 1918, a young man purchased the doll that would later on claim the name of Okiku as her own for his younger sister, and the legend would kickstart an entire tourism flash. So during this era, Japan was still stuck in the ways of feudalism. While the world around was, embracing the progress of technology and science, Japan was holding tight to their beliefs and to the rich mythology and fables. This was a land, and still is by all accounts, where demons, ghosts, vampires, and other creatures roamed free. My kind of place. A land where goblins and evil spirits were constantly harassing normal folks. Okay, not so fun. But on February 3rd, you drove evil spirits away by going to shrines and through rituals and folklore practices, known as Setsuban events. This is also a place where lake monsters gobbled up tiny humans, by the way, and I am all for that. Woods, though, like Aokigahara, northwest of Mount Fuji, drove people insane and compelled them to sadly end their lives. But don't worry, fun fact, foxes were sacred and devoted animals. Japanese culture was and still is fraught with legends and the supernatural boogeymen. And hey, dolls, some of them, were the most powerful instruments of magic. You didn't mess with them. Something I firmly stand by. So this doll in particular was bought in Sapporo by 17-year-old Eikichi Suzuki in 1918 for his little sister, Okiku. He was touring the region for a maritime exhibition, and the doll instantly caught his attention. The perfect little thing sat on a shop window, enticing him. Now Suzuki didn't think twice. He went in, instantly purchased the figurine for his sister, and used the last of his money for it. The little doll was about 40 centimeters tall and dressed in a traditional kimono, and just absolutely exquisite to look at. Its hair was raven black and cut to roughly shoulder length in a traditional okappa hairstyle. Her eyes were piercing coals that seemed to swallow everything up in their gaze. The thing was mesmerizing and enchanting, something to take your breath away. Suzuki went right back home and gave the doll to his little sister. And what do you know? She fell in love with the doll immediately. It transformed into Okiku's favorite toy, and more importantly, her best friend. She played every day with the doll, she took it everywhere, treated the figurine like a little sister. She would talk and, hang out with the thing, feed it, sleep with it, and she decided to call the doll Okiku, a mirror duplicate of herself. The doll never left the girl's sight. Sadly, a year later in 1919, tragedy struck. Poor little Okiku passed away from yellow fever, gasping for air in pain and afraid. The doll held firmly in her grasp. The family wanted to bury the doll along with the girl, but circumstances and governmental oversight prevented this last act of kindness on their part, so the doll was never laid to rest with the young girl. The doll was alternatively placed in the family's altar, which is a common practice in certain Japanese households to commemorate the dead. The small shrine celebrated their daughter and marked her passing into the afterlife. And that's when the weirdness started to occur. One family started to notice that the doll's hair was getting longer. Once a traditional shoulder-length cut with neat ends, it was now a mangled mess of split ends reaching down past her waist. Hey, don't look at my hair. It was scruffy, different colors, and felt different. At night, the family started to dream of the young girl, and sometimes the doll would appear by their side come morning.
The chilling events intensified and grew into full-blown acts of spiritual infestation. We're talking all the usual suspects. Lights flicking on and off, bangings in the house, noises and strange voices, and the closer the year got to certain dates, well, things got crazy. We're talking like Okiko's birthday and the day of her death. Over time, the family was certain, and town shamans and spiritual leaders concurred that their daughter's soul was in fact trapped within the doll. By 1938, the family relocated to a different district and had now become accustomed to Okiku and even grown fond of their daughter's restless spirit, since to them it was a magical and unique opportunity to interact with the dead. But this time they didn't want to take the doll, but when they moved they didn't want to take the doll with them, fearing that what fueled her magic was the proximity to their daughter's grave, so the family approached the local temple and asked them to take care of the doll. Now the temple by now had heard countless stories of the amazing doll. You know, the haunted doll whose hair was growing every year. The priest gleefully accepted the charge and started taking care of Okiku. Over time, they've managed to confirm the veracity of some of the claims, particularly that the hair does indeed grow. The priests have sent out samples of the hair for scientific analysis, and have proved that the hair was that of a young human. Regularly, the hair does get a trim these days, and the doll stays happy and content. As the years passed on, the doll's fame grew and her powers further developed. She's a lot bolder now, invading the dreams of the priest and those that come to visit her. She's also stronger, her hair is growing faster and wilder, and she's even spookier. You know what, my kind of girl. The latest event driving tourists mad was the frightening claim that the mouth of Okiku is slowly opening, and that if you dare to peer inside, you may be able to glimpse something like baby teeth sprouting like weeds from porcelain gums. Okay, that's a big note from me. But hey, I'd still go visit the doll. Number 4, the Daruma doll. The legend goes that Daruma sat and meditated for so long that he became like a round tumbler doll. During his travels, he stopped for a time in a Shaolin monastery in China, founding the famous homonymous martial art. He then continued his journey until he decided to settle into a cave and meditate. And this is where the story of the Daruma begins. The monk became a wall gazer. He meditated, we're talking eyes to a wall, in a seated position for 9 years, without breaks and without closing his eyes except once after 7 years. And he was so furious at himself for what he perceived as a lack of discipline that he sliced his own eyelids off so as to prevent himself from ever sleeping again. As the eyelids touched the ground, they sprouted green tea plants. Now this legend is one of the reasons behind Buddhist monks often drinking green tea to stay awake. Look, I can barely stay awake for 48 hours at a time, not that many years. Oh, on top of the self-mutilation, our lovely leader also suffered the loss of his arms and legs as a consequence of his immobility for 9 years. Art and folklore depicting Daruma show him almost exclusively displaying these characteristics, which is why the Daruma dolls, in all its aspects, symbolize the positions and features of, let's just call him B for short. This doll is the Daruma and is said to have been created by the Buddha's followers after his passing. It has been around for over 1500 years at this point, and that's not a doll I think I need to add to my collection. Walt. So I'm kicking off today with the only doll on today's list that isn't from my personal collection. This little guy actually belongs to a very good friend of mine, Mysterion the Mind Reader. He might be the one doll on this list that some of y'all may have heard about before, since he's getting more popular by the day, and he was actually recently shown on the Hulu show Repossessed. Now Mysterion isn't the original owner of the doll. To my knowledge, he's actually the 5th owner to date. And Walt's easily the most cursed doll out of the bunch today, and probably one of the most cursed dolls of all time. Through using a spirit box, Mysterion has been able to learn that Walt loves playing with fire and is around 80 years old. He looks pretty good for his age. So spirit box communication tends to require a lot of focus to understand, and that's the same tool that Mysterion used me to help communicate with some of the other dolls you'll meet today. Now, his name, in classic doll fashion, comes from his original owner, Walter Tomlinson, born in 1927, who actually started the first fire in Walt's presence and gave the doll his hunger and love of flames. This was the one toy Walter didn't destroy, and spent his days with little human contact as he suffered from violent outbursts. As punishment for attacking a housekeeper, the doll was taken from him, and in retaliation, Walter set fire to the house. Luckily nobody was hurt, but at that point he was sent to the state sanitarium, where he passed at the age of 15. So Toy Walt has a nasty habit of draining technological batteries as well as setting fires, so I did have the foresight to bring my phone charger and backup battery pack with me today just in case. Also for context, Mysterion's home is already haunted by a number of different ghosties, so I'm sure that doesn't help with Walt's general chaos. He enjoys tormenting animals, setting fires, and communicating through his bell, which I didn't bring with me today. I didn't have enough room in my bag. I do believe we have footage of him setting fire at a live seance, which as someone who knows Mysterion personally, that was very much real. Now, the last 3 owners before Mysterion took possession of this little guy all wound up being the victims of mysterious house fires. Oh, and if you light a candle in his vicinity, Walt has a very bad habit of manipulating it, so I'm glad he isn't in my home because I enjoy using candles on a regular basis. As you can see, his fingers look a little singed, and that's from years of fire chaos. Another fun physical fact, there's actually a lock of hair buried in his head that Mysterion believes came from the original owner. But
nobody knows for sure. Oh, in lighter news, recently we found out he's apparently a fan of Michael Jackson, so he's got good taste in music for an old guy. Number 4, Glenna the porcelain baby doll. Okie dokie, folks, I'm continuing this list with the most genuinely spirited doll in my personal collection, and also the oldest one. And I guess the most curious looking, but that depends on your level of fear of dolls. So, this little girl's entry into my life was pretty innocent. When I was growing up, I lived next to a set of folks I came to know as bonus grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. McLean. They were the loveliest people, and they had a little teacup poodle named Taffy that I loved very much. I forget how the conversation came to be, but one day Mrs. McLean asked if I would be interested in having one of her dolls from when she was a young girl. I accepted, and that's when this bundle of joy came into my life. Now, for the longest time, this little beauty was calm. I kept her in the corner of my room in a pink Disney princess hat box. I didn't really take her out of the box often, since, as you can see, she's pretty delicate, and I didn't really want to risk anything happening to her. At the same time, I was also given a green glass tea set along with the table and cushion seat that belonged to Mrs. McLean and to our little doll. Oh, before I forget, she didn't come with a name. I just christened her Glenna after Mrs. McLean because, well, it just felt right. And she got her little clothes on and everything. So when the day came that I left my small town to go to university, she stayed behind because I didn't want anything to happen to her. Also, my university dorm was like way too small for her and her box. It wasn't until I moved into my current place last year that I really wanted her back in my life, now that I have the space, and also just I don't really see myself ever returning to my hometown. Bless my dad, he delicately moved her in the box during one of the many hours-long road trips he's made to Toronto, and I was very happy to be reunited with her. I found a spot for Glenna and her box under my bed, and that's when things took a turn for the cursed. So for context, my room is full of figurines, ranging from nutcrackers to collectible Barbies, WWE action figures, Disney memorabilia, Funkos, and more. So on the fateful night that Glenna arrived, without any kind of rational explanation, the wind-up nutcracker on my bookshelf began to play without being wound up. So this had never happened before, or else he would be here today instead of this, delicate creature. Luckily for me, my roomie also witnessed the event, so I can be positive that I wasn't just imagining things. But here's the thing. At the time, we weren't quite sure which of the dolls in my collection had caused a disturbance, so I messaged good old Mysterion to see if I could bring them over to his place and we could do some investigating. Bless him, he was in town that week. He's quite the world traveler. So I packed up Glenna and a few of the other dolls I'll be introducing y'all to today and brought them over to his place to get to the bottom of things. He's pretty dang good at communicating with creepy doll spirits, being the owner of, a couple of creepy dolls himself, other than Walt. Granted, he also just has a full-blown museum of weird stuff in his actual home. Nevertheless, we did a session and tried seeing which of the dolls wanted to communicate with us. It turned out that Glenna here was angry about the road trip and disruption to her environment and wanted to make it crystal clear that she wouldn't be a fan about anything like that ever happening again. I vowed to her then and there that I wouldn't dream of putting her through another big move ever again. Heck, today is the first time she's left my apartment in over a year. I'm really hoping she doesn't cause a ruckus tonight, but I'm planning on cleansing my home just in case. Number 3, Kokeshi doll. So these dolls are known for their simple cylindrical shapes and vibrant colors, but there's a dark and eerie story associated with them that goes way beyond their charming appearance. Kinda like me. If before you meet me, I'm cute. Afterwards, oof. Aoyama was an obstetrician, and his family's clinic was adorned with a chilling collection of Kokeshi dolls, each representing a terminated pregnancy. Now, Aoyama believed these dolls were made to appease the spirits of those who had left, a claim rooted in a macabre urban legend. He even mentioned a gruesome midwife who supposedly cut off her own arms in penance for her sins. While these stories were fabricated, they added to the eerie atmosphere of his house, which was filled, once again, to the brim with these Kokeshi dolls. Over time, the collection grew, spilling into the family's residence. Now, when the person who's telling the story to me today visited his house, it had an even more ominous era, with the dolls strewn about, an unsettling reminder of, you know what. Strangely, Aoyama was unchanged, except for the fact that he had lost both arms in an accident. He equated himself to a Kokeshi human and lamented his inability to do his job without arms. Aoyama's passing the following year marked the end of his eerie collection, but his mother continued to live in the house, surrounded by nearly 1,000 Kokeshi dolls. Strangely, the witness to this chaos took home one of the Kokeshi dolls Aoyama had made, and afterwards experienced unsettling dreams and hallucinations. Yeah, no thank you, that doll can stay far, far away. Number 2, Iki Ningio. It all began with Junji Inagawa, a multi-talented artist deeply involved in traditional Japanese plays who stumbled upon a peculiar incident during a late-night radio broadcast. A distressed crew member claimed to have heard the voice of a fan who had passed away months ago, sending shivers down their collective spine. Now, Inagawa, no stranger to the mysteries of the supernatural, encountered something inexplicable on the way back home. A young girl in a red kimono, seemingly ordinary until she defied gravity, hey, hold your horses, wicked fans, and approached him, unseen by others. This marked the start of his unsettling
unsettling journey. As he delved into a new theatrical project featuring a doll, he was horrified to discover that the doll bore a striking resemblance to the levitating girl from that fateful night. The eerie incidents that followed seemed like a series of ominous messages from the other side. The artisan who crafted the doll vanished, a scriptwriter's house was mysteriously consumed by flames, and many other accidents plagued the rehearsals. Now perhaps the most unsettling of all were the injuries that specifically targeted the right hand and right knee of the crew members. Seeking solace, Inagawa turned to temples and shrines, even resorting to placing the doll in a coffin, which did bring temporary respite. However, the malevolent force persisted, claiming the life of Inagawa's father. The doll's curse also weighed heavily on Mr. Maeno, the puppeteer who took it home, leading to a considerable decline in his mental health. In 1979, an interview about the doll on a TV program turned surreal. All the usual things. Lights flickered, technical glitches ensued, and audience members grew uneasy. Maeno's behavior was unnerving as he conversed with the doll as if it were a living entity. Strangely, the episode has been lost to time, adding to the eerie mystique surrounding the cursed doll. Screenshots and eyewitness accounts stand as eerie remnants. Inagawa's continued attempts to rid himself of the doll have met with bizarre obstacles, including a reclusive doll maker working in seclusion and the cancellation of an interview. Now, the doll eventually found its way to a friend in Nishizu, sparking a fresh wave of strange occurrences. And then, mysteriously, the doll vanished from the shrine, leaving no trace. If I was anybody, I would just let it be. It doesn't want to be found, let it vanish. Number 1, Licca-chan. So the world of creepy dolls just got even stranger, folks, as we delve into the chilling lore of the Licca-chan doll. You see, this doll is no ordinary plaything. It is a tale that's gonna send shivers down your spine and mine. This doll has been compared to the very popular Barbie. She was so beloved in Japan that the manufacturer set up a phone line for eager young folks to call and chat with, the doll herself. Or at least they thought they were. So rumors began circulating that some of the folks who called in were hearing unsettling messages from Licca, such as, "I'm coming to your house to kill you." It's the stuff of nightmares. Now let's dive into the dark urban legend that followed. So imagine a young girl, too old to play with dolls, who decides to discard her cherished doll. She throws it in the trash and her family relocates to a new city. Innocent enough, right? Yeah, that's when things take a turn. Upon returning home from school, the girl answers a phone call from an eerie voice claiming to be her doll, who ominously states, "I'm on the rubbish dump, I was abandoned, but I'm coming home." Now the girl dismisses it as a prank, but grows increasingly uneasy as subsequent calls hint at the doll's eerie presence. The final call chills her to the core as the voice claims, "I'm outside your house, open the door." Now the girl peers out the window to find nothing, sighs in relief only to hear, "I'm right behind you," and the tale ends there, leaving us with a hair-raising sense of dread. But there's more to this cursed doll's lore. The company manufacturing this doll made an error during production, producing a single batch of three-legged dolls, and even though they recalled most of them, some slipped through the cracks and ended up with the public. One particularly unsettling story involves a woman who found a three-legged doll in a public restroom. To her horror, the doll's deformed purple third leg moved and its tiny mouth whispered, "My name is Licca-chan, and I'm cursed, I'm cursed, I'm cursed." Now the haunting voice tormented our narrator relentlessly, leading to a nightmarish descent into madness. Other variations of the legend feature the three-legged doll playing gruesome games of hide and seek, impaling unsuspecting victims, or even growing a cursed leg on anyone who dared flush it down the toilet. It's safe to say, you might want to think twice before throwing out that old doll from when you were young. And that brings us to the end of our time, and all I have to say on the matter is, nice creepy scary dolls, please don't curse me, I'm dealing with enough as it is. Number 3, Licca-chan. So the Licca-chan doll, a popular counterpart to the, ever so famous Barbie, was so beloved in Japan that the manufacturer set up a phone line for eager young folks to call and chat with the doll herself. Or, well, they thought they were. Rumors began circulating that some little ones reported hearing unsettling messages from Licca-chan, such as, "I'm coming to your house to kill you." Stuff of nightmares. So, how about we just talk about some of the urban legends surrounding this doll that I think are pretty true. So imagine a young girl who might be like a little too old to play with dolls, so like let's say 12, who decides to discard her cherished Licca-chan. She throws it in the trash, family relocates to a new city, as you do. Well, doll didn't leave her alone. One day when returning home from school, the girl answered a phone call from an eerie voice claiming to be Licca-chan, who ominously stated, "I'm on the rubbish dump. I was abandoned, but I'm coming home." The girl originally dismissed it as a prank, but she got a little nervous when she got more phone calls. Now the final phone call chilled her to the core when the voice claimed, "I'm outside your house. Open the door." So she peered out the window, didn't really see anything. Whew, big sigh of relief, and then she heard, "I'm right behind you." And that's where that one ended, because yikes, I don't want to know what happened next. But there's more to this cursed doll than you might believe. So the company manufacturing the doll actually made an error during production, so we got a batch of three-legged dolls, which hey, I'm all for. So even though they were called most of them, some did slip through the cracks and ended up with the public. One particular unsettling story involved a woman finding a three-legged Licca-chan doll in a public restroom. To her horror, the doll's deformed purple third leg moved, and its tiny mouth whispered, "My name is Licca-chan, and I'm cursed. I'm cursed. I'm cursed. The haunting voice tormented her relentlessly, leading to a nightmarish descent into madness. Now, other variations of the legend featured the three-legged Licca-chan doll playing gruesome games of hide and seek, impaling unsuspecting victims, or even growing a cursed leg on anyone who dared to flush it down the toilet. So yeah, don't throw out your old dolls. Please, they're gonna come back and haunt you. Number 2, the Leta doll. So in 1972, Kerry Walt returned to his Australian hometown for his grandmother's funeral. During this time, he decided to face a, fear from when he was young by visiting an abandoned building that had scared him for years. And when he went to this house, he discovered an old marionette under the porch. He felt compelled to take it home with him, and they've been together ever since. According to psychics, the doll was made 200 years ago by a Romanian traveler for his son who had sadly drowned. The doll has real human hair, and underneath the scalp is the likeness of a human brain. He was given the name Leta, or Leta, due to his heritage, and also because the doll occasionally screams, "Let me out!" So yeah, the doll's a little quirky. If you take the doll outside, it's gonna rain. And if you bring it into a room, if there's something hanging on the wall, it might fall off. Dogs bark and attempt to attack whenever they're near Leta. And people said that they feel inexplicably afraid and sad when they see him. Oh, Leta's also supposedly capable of moving on his own, changing positions while seated, and emitting a pulse while held. So I'm good. Number 1, Robert the Evil Doll. Probably the most, other than Annabelle, the most famous doll on today's list. So for starters, this one only looks vaguely human. His nub of a nose looks like a pair of pinholes, and he's covered in brown little marks, kind of like scars. His eyes are beady and black, and combined with his malevolent smirk, he's terrifying to look at. Clasped in his lap, he's holding his own toy. The doll originally belonged to Robert Eugene Otto, an artist described as, eccentric, but what artist isn't? Neighbors of Robert used to hear him having a conversation with the doll, and this continued into his adult years. He brought it everywhere, and talked about it in the first person, as if it weren't a doll. Which, hey, might sound kinda batty, but it's the best way to deal with cursed objects. Now, the doll remained stored in the Otto family home until Robert passed in 1974. Under the age of double digits, daughter found the doll in the attic. Now, the young girl often claimed that the doll was trying to kill her. Yeah, the doll is now on display in a museum in Key West, and he's believed to still curse people. His last caretaker before the museum experienced him disappear and reappear as he pleased, along with hearing footsteps and giggling in the attic. Some claimed Robert's expression changed when anyone badmouthed Otto in his presence. He's also been responsible for a few car crashes, some divorces, broken bones, and some other stuff. So, good Robert, please. I don't need to be cursed. I think I'm going to start off today with a doozy of a coincidence that is begging for attention. So a husband and wife team of paranormal investigators claim their Raggedy Ann doll is possessed after CCTV footage showed it moving out of its display cabinet. Lee and Lindsay Steer, aged 37 and 52 respectively, who run the Museum of Haunted Objects from their home in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, said they have caught the doll on, CCTV footage flipping over their Ouija board table in the past. You're telling me that a large Raggedy Ann doll is causing problems with a Ouija board? Well then, I'm getting deja vu. Anybody else? They believe the doll is the cause of them nearly being in a car crash and having mysterious illnesses, which once led Lindsay being in a hospital for a week, with doctors having no idea what caused it. So in the museum, Lindsay has also felt something grab her neck tightly and has seen things fly across the room with no logical explanation, which the full-time investigators believe could be because of their doll. Their doll is an identical copy of the cursed Annabelle doll, and they think it might be a conduit for a similar spiritual energy source. The doll was made in, the same factory, and since it looks exactly the same as Annabelle, which many paranormal believers think is possessed, the coincidences are there. Now, this specific doll was given to Lee and Lindsay in October of 2019, and on the 2-year anniversary of the couple owning the doll struck again. This is where the heavy Ouija table was hurled over, which was caught on footage, and Lee explained that the doll was sitting on a chair at the table. It's very solid and it's got a metal leg holding it up, so there's no way it would have just fallen over or collapsed. Somebody had put a little speaker on the table, walked away, and the next minute the table just collapsed. There's no logical explanation as to why that should have happened, and it was just the way this doll was staring straight at it. So after this, they decided to put their Raggedy Ann doll in a glass cupboard on a secure hook to avoid anything dangerous happening again. But they didn't put anything protective around it. No holy water, no tarot cards, no nothing. So on Halloween night, 2022 at about 3 a.m., the footage showed this Raggedy Ann stepping out of the display cabinet legs first. And that's the footage we have today. Lindsay explained she's in a glass cabinet. The door is really stiff, so you'd have to really pull it open. She shouldn't have fallen legs first because, her head's heavier than her legs. It looks as though in the footage that she's sort of twisting her legs to come out first, stepping out, which isn't a natural way for a doll to fall. It's very, very bizarre bizarre. Lindsay has continued to explain that they have some cat balls, which basically flash if somebody touches them, and all of a sudden they just went like flying down the steps, which is just so bizarre. In the last 2 weeks after the Raggedy Ann stepping out of the cupboard, the museum was getting more and more dangerous and things were getting more physical. Now, the paranormal investigators were used to dealing with that sort of thing, but it was getting more intense and it was building up energy, big time. When Lindsay was feeling a reel one day, something, once again, grabbed the back of her neck out of nowhere and squeezed it so tightly that like it wasn't painful, but it made her not want to be in that room, and made her think something major's gonna happen, but apparently she's not scaring them for now. So yeah, the couple are keeping the doll in the museum for now, but they say if things start getting violent, they're gonna consider getting help from a demonologist. Yeah, I'm watching history repeat itself. Anybody else? If things start getting violent, they're already violent. For the love of everything, bring in a demonologist, get rid of the Ouija board, douse the place in holy water. Protect yourselves, you fools. Next up is a little variant on today's list, a demented puppet. Paranormal investigator Jane Harris filmed the puppet every night for 3 months using a timed night vision camera. The 32-year-old from Stourbridge, West Mids, was watching the puppet after its previous owner claimed it tried to, hand necklace him to death. The chilling footage shows the puppet's cross slowly moving upright and then crashing into a glass pane of the sealed box. Since receiving the puppet, it has been kept inside a container blessed by holy water and for extra safety and investigation accuracy. Which, good! Jane, who investigates haunted dolls for her company, HG Paranormal, said the cabinet has no doors, so you would have to physically lift all 4 sides and the base off to move it. For them, there was no point in faking evidence. It's only tricking yourself. This footage was real. The ultimate goal was to find out as much as they could about the spirit and then to try to understand why it's still there. Jane had been investigating spiritual attachments to haunted puppets for 17 years after training as a psychologist. She mentioned that the video evidence is real and more difficult for her to disprove than people believing they have had paranormal experiences from other haunted dolls. Now, the puppet's former owner, John, inherited the 1960s toy after his father's death and claims to have experienced minor haunting experiences. But they all built up to one evening where he believes the spirit attached to the puppet was, well, getting the life out of him. He mentioned that he had cleared out all of his dad's belongings apart from the puppet, which he left on the drawer by his bed for some reason, and that night he just couldn't sleep. He was wide awake in bed and thought he saw a shadow move from one side of the window to the other and was worried something was trying to scare him. But then without warning, his throat was very, very tight, and he's never had anybody's hands around his throat before, so it was really scary. And while he was struggling to breathe, he tried to wake his wife, but she wasn't waking up. When she did, he remembered looking straight at the puppet sitting on the drawers near the bed and realizing that was the source of the problem. John said the haunting experience began 2 weeks after inheriting the puppet, which he reluctantly kept because, well, it was one of his father's favorite possessions. He also started to have really bad headaches and feel dizzy, which at first he didn't really think could be because of the puppet, just, it happened. But once Jane took the doll away, both John and his wife felt a lot better. That night he slept properly for the first time in months. No more headaches, no more footsteps. Everything had stopped, and that's when he realized, damn, it was the puppet. He's mentioned that the fact that there's video evidence now kind of makes him uncomfortable. He's not gonna watch it. He doesn't need any more proof. He lived with that thing for months, and it did more than enough to convince him. That's about says it all. Time to travel over to the UK, where we meet another doll said to be an equivalent to Annabelle. The spooky Grace doll is kept in a locked box in one of the bedrooms at Ye Old King's Head pub in Chester, which is said to be the most haunted hotel in Chester. The pub is renowned for stories of spooky goings-on over the years, with paranormal enthusiasts from all over the world now coming to the city to visit the venue. The box containing the eerie doll is under 24/7 surveillance and chained down, but not to keep the doll in, according to the hotel's paranormal investigator, Danny Moss. He said instead it was to keep people from opening the box. He explained that some visitors had felt compelled to open it, as though something was willing them to do it. The hotel plays host to numerous keen ghost hunters, eager to see the array of creepy artifacts and reported paranormal activity at the venue. The Grace doll is said to be so haunted that only seasoned paranormal investigators can enter the room in which it resides, which is so smart. Danny explained that he's been investigating the item for the last 5 years, and he's seen it produce some of the best evidence in the paranormal field, but to now capture it moving on camera is a special moment. I agree with this. There will always be skepticism when it comes to the paranormal, and rightly so, but when you capture something like this, people have to come to terms with the possibility that there really are things out there that we can't understand. The way the item moves defies all laws of gravity, and that's what makes the footage so compelling. It's important to note that the room is locked and the public do not have access upstairs during the day. Danny said it was moved to room 8 at the hotel, also known as My Haunted Hotel, in January of last year from its previous home at the Tatton Old Hall in Cheshire. The doll made national headlines in 2019 where it was said to have told Danny it wanted to burn his eyes. Absolutely not. No thank you. Time to move on from stuffed nightmares and instead talk about a porcelain beauty. Could not me. Lee Roberts and Paul Stevenson were doing a practice live broadcast from the notorious poltergeist hotspot ahead of their scheduled Halloween visit. However, while filming themselves creep around the infamous 30 East Drive in Pontefract, West Yorkshire, they claim a doll in one of the bedrooms was used by a poltergeist or demonic force to scare them. The terrifying footage shows a porcelain doll named Victoria in her box with the lid on when they first go into the bedroom. Nice and chill, just hanging out. However, when they return moments later, the doll has moved and the lid is completely off and has been bent out of shape, leaving the pair then checking the house for an intruder in panic. They mention that there's definitely a dark presence, and sadly, it could be a demonic one. The house was the site of one of Britain's most notorious alleged hauntings when the Pritchard family was subjected to years of torment by the so-called Black Monk of Pontefract. Mr. Roberts believes the Black Monk is a dark spirit, possibly demonic, who used Victoria to scare the ghost hunting duo into not returning on Halloween. The doll was apparently originally found in the attic of the house, but here's the kicker: nobody knows where she came from or who she belonged to. The box actually has a warning on it saying that if you wish to look at Victoria, you should not take her out of the box and always cover her back up. And once again, I say, those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. If something has a warning on it, leave it alone. The footage that we have shows the duo enter the bedroom and film the position that Victoria is lying in, with the lid to the box covering her face. After leaving the room, Mr. Roberts claims that they both saw the shape of a figure move across the hallway with wavy black hair, just like the doll, followed by a loud bang, so they went back into the room to investigate. The footage shows Mr. Stevenson then claim he heard someone call out Lee, so the duo panics and begins rushing downstairs in fear to check the doors are, locked. Mr. Roberts mentioned that they didn't know what was real and what wasn't. If someone had been in there toying with them, then that's even scarier than a ghost. It was a really frightening 90 minutes, and as they left, the door swung open, but wouldn't do it again when they tried. They definitely think it was some sort of presence doing it. They were just about to leave, so they think it was something there warning them to say, don't go back. I hope they listened. So when it comes to who or what is most likely to be perceptive of ghosties in the home, animals, the very young, and true believers tend to bear the brunt of the responsibilities. Well, this is a case where a kitty sadly got caught on camera while experiencing the fright of their lives. Kathy Gallinger said that since moving into her home back in August of 2018, she had experienced a series of scary supernatural incidents, including objects moving on their own and shadow figures appearing in the darkness. But she was stunned when a CCTV camera she had set up in her basement captured a black mass emerging from her mother's old doll from the 1950s, which she believes could be a ghost. Footage captured shows her black cat Salem visibly distressed and staring intently at her dolls before what appears to be a black mist appearing from one of them and drifting in the cat's direction before sending the fearful feline scarpering. Although the call center operator has become used to the paranormal scaring the life out of her in her own home, she has since avoided venturing down to the basement unaccompanied at all costs. The footage is so freaky that some suggested that the family had digitally edited the clip, but Kathy says that they had to work really hard to debunk anything they capture on camera, and she's adamant, if I put it on the internet, it's real. So after the mom of one discovered her home was a hive for paranormal activity, she started capturing videos, and her daughter convinced her to set up a TikTok account to share them, which I think has amassed more than 600,000 followers and likes. Kathy mentioned that her TikTok followers asked to put the camera in with the dolls overnight in the basement, since that's where most of the activity is. The cat was down there, and also her daughter's bedroom was down there, and she said the cat ran to her door. She heard him outside and let him in, and he was just clearly afraid of something. That's when she told her mom, hey, you might want to check those cameras because the cat's crazy scared. So the next day, they checked the cameras, and what she saw was her cat clearly staring at these dolls, frightened of something, and then all of a sudden, the black mass, which she thinks could be a ghost. She describes Salem, which is the cat, as being her protector. The cat goes everywhere with her, so if she does have to go downstairs and she's nervous, he follows her, and it's uncommon for him to show signs of being afraid like that.